Good afternoon, good evening. I realize that we are competing with Aperitivo on a beautiful evening in Perugia at 5 o'clock, so I'm very grateful to you for making the time. I hope you've been having a fantastic conference, and I'm really delighted to be spending what is my last panel and one of the last English-speaking panels of the conference in the company of two of my favorite criminals. Last year, on December the 1st, which is the date on which the Committee to Protect Journalists, which I run, dates its annual prison census, there were 361 journalists in jail worldwide. 361, one for almost every day of the year. That's just shy of the 2022 record, but for the last 3 years, we've had record numbers of journalists in prison, which either means that journalists as a group are really just criminal masterminds, or that criminalizing journalism and journalists has become a go-to method, not just for authoritarian regimes, but those where we're seeing democracy in decline. And because of that, I think it's really important that we understand this mechanism, because it is not going away. It's not anomalous. It's something that is growing and we all need to be aware of. And that's why we've organized this afternoon's panel, is to really understand the mechanisms that are used to criminalize journalists, what it's like to be a journalist in prison, unfairly imprisoned, and what it's like afterwards when you are free. And to do that, I am really delighted to have two fantastic journalists, two ex-criminals. Omar Radi, the Moroccan investigative journalist, well known internationally for his investigations into Moroccan corruption at the highest level. He's also a human rights activist. In July 2020, he was arrested first on charges of public drunkenness, then on espionage charges before being sentenced in March 2022 on rape charges, after which, during a trial where he was not, it was universally recognized that he did not get a fair trial, and on espionage charges. On my immediate right is Alsu Kurmasheva. She's a long-time journalist for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's Tata Bakshir service. She wrote primarily about indigenous communities and human rights. Extremely well known in her community, particularly understand her voice is very well known, if not her face. She was detained in Russia in May 2023 when she went home not on a journalist trip, but to see her mother who was ill. She was detained initially for not having registered her American passport. Eventually, after a year in detention, she was convicted and sentenced to 6.5 years on charges of spreading fake news. And in a really weird but slightly joyous twist of fate, they were both released within 3 days of each other last year. Alsu famously in a prisoner swap that many of you may be familiar with, and Omar after a royal pardon in which a number of human rights activists and others were pardoned. I'm really excited that they're here. We're going to have a great conversation, and hopefully you will all get involved as well. So let me start by asking you both, tell me a little bit about the work, the kind of work that you did before you were arrested. Omar, let's start with you, perhaps.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Jodie. Hi, Alsu. I started as a young journalist in 2008, and I was a radio reporter in a financial economic radio station in Casablanca. And I had the opportunity and the privilege, as a radio was like the voice of the Moroccan Grand Capital. I met a lot of CEOs and bankers, etc., this kind of business class. And then I have been hired by Le Journal Hebdomadaire, which was an opposition weekly magazine. And then I used all the information. I wasn't allowed to publish on the radio, to air on the radio, in this weekly magazine where I had room to investigate more all the details I gathered earlier. Then after that, and thanks to journalists like Abu Bakr Jam'i, I went that way in investigative journalism and adopted that kind of journalism that asks two questions: who has the power, and what they do with the power. And this gave me I choose the way of investigating the relationship between the power in Morocco, the political power, and the use of the political power on economic fields and corruption levels. I specialized a lot in land grabbing, state capture. I did a lot of investigation on how people that are the most weak people in Morocco got their land expropriated from them, and then the lands are given to big companies to build like golf courses and condominiums for the rich, etc. So this is the kind of journalism I have done since like 15 years.
So speaking truth to power, and understandably that made people a little bit unhappy. Also, you different kind of journalism, not necessarily this kind of obviously as confrontational. Talk to us about the kind of journalism you were doing.
I joined RFE 25 years ago as a radio show moderator. Radio Free Europe played a big role in the history and the history of my ethnic group, which is Tatars, the second biggest ethnic group in Russia. Tatars learned about their history, about their culture and traditions from Radio Free Europe, as during Soviet times. It was embarrassing for me as a child to speak Tatar, my native Tatar, with my parents in public. This is how I grew up, and it was an honor and privilege to join RFE. And since then, I've done lots of regional coverage, regional journalism, and not only on Russia. I've worked on projects on Georgia, on Crimean Tatar projects. Why I always loved it, though I also worked in a big newsroom within RFE, I love to be connected to my audience and giving voice to my voiceless people in Tatarstan and all around the world. The Tatar community lives in many countries. That was incredible because I saw the immediate feedback. I saw the connection. So you mentioned my voice. My voice was recognized by my listeners. Actually, when I joined RFE 25 years ago, my former boss told me that, Alsu, this is the last year we are working. This is how RFE works. We close operations in countries where there is free media, where there is no need for us to step in and bring people balanced and honest information, because there are local media doing that. And I witnessed myself, after I joined, that 3 services closed at RFE. They were Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian services closed, and it was so emotional to see my Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian colleagues going back to their countries to join their local and state media and working in that field. It was incredible. So since then, 25 years, RFE is still working, and it was expanding over years because there was still a need and demand for the job we were doing.
Which tells you a lot about the direction of travel that we saw in Russia over that period of time, right? So there was this moment of hope where it looked like things were going to open up, and actually everything has got more and more narrow and more restrictive. And we'll come and talk about that and the circumstances in which essentially independent media has all been snuffed out. But I want to take you to your arrests. You obviously, Omar, had experienced quite a lot of, a reasonable amount of judicial harassment, public naming and shaming. Just talk a little bit about the circumstances around your arrest and that led to the latest detention.
Months after my release on a royal pardon, I still don't know what exactly in my career, in my acts, triggered this will to arrest me, but I know I have some hypotheses. In 2020, my phone has been diagnosed with Pegasus by Amnesty International. And
that's spyware. So you had spyware.
Yeah, Pegasus is a spyware that is sold to dictatorships and law enforcement by NSO, an Israeli company. And yeah, as a journalist, that was very dangerous because I have sources and sensitive content, etc. And this was on the front page of every major newspaper in the world, thanks to the work of Forbidden Stories collective, a French collective of investigative journalists. And Morocco state wasn't happy with that. So one of their tactics is to accuse you of the same thing that you accused them. So the guys who spied on me a year long accused me in return of being a spy. So they took my bank account. They found that I got money of a grant, journalism grants money, and they also tapped my phone, transcribed all the text messages and phone calls, etc., and tried to fabricate something like an accusation. And this ridiculous amount of police reports on that was presented to the trial. And when I showed that this was really empty, there was nothing, they passed to the other tactic, is to frame you for sexual misconduct. And yeah, without going into the details, because it's really in the trial documents, and organizations such as Human Rights Watch, CPJ, Reporters Without Borders worked on the details of the accusations and saw that it was an empty, and it was a framed job, clearly. And it's not the first time that happened. I'm the third journalist in 3 years that has been the third critical journalist that has been accused of such shaming accusations.
And it's one of the things, it's worth saying, I think, two things. It's one of the things we see frequently at CPJ is both this smearing tactic against journalists, whether it results in criminal charges or not, these kinds of, you are accused of sexual misconduct, people have been filmed. We see that very frequently, and we also, unfortunately, increasingly see journalists accused of on espionage charges as well, because it's all part of the effort to frame you as a bad person and an untrustworthy person.
It's discrediting too, because they since 2011, in the Moroccan parts of the Arab Spring, the state and propaganda security apparatus, they used accusations like atheists in Morocco, conservative religious country. This is shaming. Not Muslim atheists, gay, because gay, same thing. There's a very homophobic tendency in Morocco, and they can label you with everything just to discredit you. But the problem, and I want to come back to that, is Moroccan institutions such as the justice, the state-backed media, the pro-state intellectuals. Once they say something, the public opinion understands the opposite. So when the judge recognized me as guilty, the whole Moroccan society said Omar is free because this judge said otherwise. And that was the solidity of the solidarity campaign, which were very, very important.
That's really interesting, because I want to come back to that, because I don't think that's true everywhere. And actually, one of the things that a friend and great campaigner Jason Rezaian always talks about is we must be careful not to just repeat the language used by the oppressor, right? So if they say that you're arrested on espionage charges, we mustn't automatically say, oh, well, that person is a spy. We must talk about state hostage taking, because otherwise it also becomes fact. Alsu, you had a slightly different experience, right? You went home, you weren't on a reporting trip, you weren't necessarily kind of a big focus, I don't think, for the Russian government, or weren't aware that you were a big focus for the Russian government. You went home to see your mother. Talk us through just what happened then.
I was detained first at the airport, and then I spent 5 months under house arrest, and I was ready to pack and buy my tickets and go back to Prague, where we live and work, and suddenly it was I think Wednesday in October, I was making lunch and I was cooking that very traditional dish. I'm sure many of you know, many cultures have it. It's pilaf, it's called plau. In Tatar, it's rice and meat and herbs and spices and dry apricot and raisins. And my father used to teach me how to make it. It takes time. You cannot rush through the plau. You should love doing it. So I was in the middle of that, and the story why I'm telling you this, so when people in black masks started storming my mom's door, all I was thinking, I think that was the reaction of my brain. All I was thinking, oh, I cannot burn that plow, because as if that was the most important thing. And actually, it took some time.
It is very important.
When they were taking me handcuffed to the police car, the last thing I told, there were neighbors, of course, it was so embarrassing, but the last thing I told to everyone, please make sure you turn off the stove, you know, so it's...
They did turn it off. We don't need to call or anything.
No, I'm sure. I never talk about it with anyone. I'm sure, yeah. So as if it was important. And then I remembered that situation, and I remembered like why I did that, and said, but that's important. That's what we come back always in times of fear and uncertainty. Favorite food, parents we take care of, children we raise, friends we love, colleagues we respect. These are the basic things when we absolutely think we lose sanity, which we have to take that step back, and we have all of that, and that gives us strength. So that's how I was arrested.
And did they tell you what you were being arrested for? Because originally they told you you hadn't registered your passport properly. That was it, right? So did they tell you at that point what you were being arrested for?
The arrest came as they accused me of not being registered as a foreign agent. And in Russia, nobody registered as foreign agent. It's the problem or the job of the Justice Ministry to do so. So it was totally vague, and nobody understood why. It was just a reason to take me to the police station. But now I wanted to follow up on what Omar said, that I'm jealous that in Morocco there was solidarity, because in Russia I didn't feel that there was so much solidarity, but I don't think there wasn't any. I'm sure there was. It's just, I was getting thousands of letters from all around the globe, also some from Russia, and no single letter or postcard from Kazan, from my native town where people knew me. Does this sound strange? Yes. And then once during court hearing, and my court hearings were packed with journalists and people who wanted to see me, and people from foreign embassies in Moscow, human rights lawyers, and somebody shouted, "Alsu are writing letters, are you getting them?" And that struck me, yes. So they deliberately are isolating me from my people, from my audience, from people who know me.
So let's talk about the conditions then. And isolation is a tactic. It's a tactic that we know very well is used against political prisoners. You were in prison for 4 years, right, Omar? And for all but 8 months of those 4 years, you were in solitary confinement, right?
I was in solitary confinement for 3 years and a few months. Yeah, I was put in, I didn't understand, because I was there officially for ordinary criminal accusations, and I should have been treated like any other. So I discovered that they would put me in a small cell, like what we call the hole in the American cultural system, and I wasn't allowed to speak to anybody. Nobody was allowed to speak to me. People were punished to say hi to me. I understood that I have a special status in prison. Plus, and I was under tight surveillance. They were making a daily report on me. Woke up at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, marmalade and bread, smoke 1 cigarette, second cigarette, 20 cigarettes, etc. And slept at, and every day they make. I didn't have the client attorney privilege. Prison guard was sitting with us on visitations by the lawyer. Same for my parents, who were the only ones allowed to visit me. And of course, letters were filtered. I may have received 10% of the amount of letters I was supposed to receive, and none of the letters I sent arrived at destination. There was also a psychological harassment aspect of the, they can lie to you, they can say, your father is making a deal with the devil, with enemies of Morocco, just to get you out, but he's not getting you out, he's making your case worse, etc., etc., etc.
And they intimidated your family as well, directly, right?
They intimidated family, they insulted my family on a daily basis on the media, because we have a substandard media landscape in Morocco that works directly with intelligence services, and now they are very low. They can insult you. They said very shaming words about my mother, my father, my brother, my friends. Some of them are here today. Yeah, everybody who shows solidarity has been terrified in the first time, but thanks to the resilience of these people, to whom I'm very grateful, we showed the world that you cannot back off in front of an authoritarian regime. The only response is to escalate, is to show that you can be strong as well, and they are resistant. And this is not only for yourself, but also for the future cases, for the future generations. What will they think if you backed off? It's over, and it's not over, actually.
And I want to come to the kind of things that worked to give you resilience, but I also want to go back to this sort of sense of how authoritarian regimes treat political prisoners like the worst criminals, right? So there was an occasion where you were punished for something that you did, or I think by being put in a cell, a tiny cell, yeah, with the worst criminals who'd committed terrible crimes as a kind of punishment, and then told them to beat you up, basically, right?
To mistreat me, but to spare me physically. I mean, to psychologically mistreat me, etc. And it happened when they put me in this collective cell, very tiny cell with 12 people. I slept basically on the floor for a long period, and there was a lot of insects. You know, all the whole story of prisons, and. It happened to be this very moment where the European Parliament adopted a resolution about me and asking for my liberation and for a fair trial. And this infuriated the Moroccan regime. They hate international solidarity, and especially from institutional level. So in the Moroccan TV, we had a TV in the cell, I was insulted every day in the news. So I was kind of a star for the people in my cell. Yeah, whoa, he's on TV, guys. Look, and then we sympathized, and also I discovered that these people were very, very, very way younger than me. Like they're born in 2000 and 2001 and 2002, and to my surprise, I discovered that they didn't know how to write their names. Like they are Gen Z and they haven't been in school. And so I tried to profile and to understand how these people haven't been in school. And I discovered that the lands I was working on, where people have been expelled, these people with the zero compensation or very low compensation went to live in the very farther suburbs of cities, and it's a misery belt. So it's the result of the new regime, the Moroccan new regime, that sent me to jail, that didn't educate them and finally sent them to jail. So we found a lot of things in common and a lot of solidarity, so we became friends.
So it sort of slightly backfired. Alsu, you had a similar experience in terms of solitary confinement and kind of that psychological pressure where you were told certain things and asked certain questions. Talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
Before that, if I may, what Omar just said gives me goosebumps, because the women I met in prison were basically the same women who I wrote about, who I covered, victims of domestic violence, who were there charged with murder of their partners and husbands. This is exactly what I cover. This is because there is no law on domestic violence in Russia, and it's a big problem, and it's not criminalized, domestic violence. And I met so many women who were there.
And were you able to tell them that that's what you did, or could you not?
Yes, we talked about it, and they were very grateful that at least somebody talks about it on that level. I wasn't kept in solitary confinement. Sometimes I wished I was, because I had to share tiny cells with different women who were not necessarily there voluntarily. They were sent there to talk to me and get out some information. But as I'm a journalist and I'm not a spy and I'm not an agent and I'm not hiding anything, and all the information about me is there, out there, and the investigators also knew it, there was nothing to hide. So those conversations were always very meaningful, and no matter how hostile those women were when they came to the cell, they were best friends when they were leaving. So it was very easy to connect, and this is a basic journalistic skill as well, to connect to people. So this helped me a lot. The other thing is that, did I want to be connecting to them? Not really. So it wasn't like it was my choice. I had to build those bridges just to survive. The conditions were horrible for everybody, especially for women. It's in Kazan. It's an old prison. It's a notorious prison. It's a prison on the way, if you know Russia, from Moscow to Siberia, and they used to transfer and keep political prisoners there during Stalin times, and there is a feeling that nothing changed there since then. So I won't tell you about, like the basic conditions don't exist there. No toilets, no nothing. But the most dangerous and the worst part of it, that the whole system is built there to deprive you of dignity. And for women, it's even easier to lose that sanity and dignity, because if there is no hot water and it's minus 30 outside, and you can't use any electric appliances, it's only like some very old thing to warm up water. You don't brush your teeth today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, morning, evening, a couple of more days, and you are done. You are not a human being anymore. If you can't wash your hair or take a shower at least once a week, once 1 week passes, the second week passes, you are not a human being anymore. And it's very easy for interrogators to talk to you, because you will be ready to sign any paper. I slept without a mattress and a pillow for first 10 days when I was in prison. So I was, luckily, again, being able to connect to people. Somebody in the cell had a hidden mattress, and it's a skill to hide a mattress in a tiny cell. So she felt for me, and she really was very nice to share a second mattress with me. Those kinds of things, of course, happen because people are people, like human beings. And those kinds of things, and the psychological pressure was enormous. I was so lucky not to experience any physical violence against me, but I witnessed a lot. And it comes from gender misogyny, that not only in prison, but in the whole society in that country, where women think they are weak because the whole society says that, look, you cannot do anything. And then they cannot stand against unjust rules in prison or against prison administration. So they show and they express that aggression against each other.
And that witnessing itself, even if you didn't experience it yourself, is traumatizing to see it exercised on other people.
It is.
Let's turn the page a little bit and talk about the things that brought you hope. One of the things that people ask me a lot in this work is, does it make a difference? You know, does it make a difference to do the campaigning? Does anybody know if they're in jail? You know, do the letters get through? Were you aware that there were these big international campaigns on your behalf? I mean, for those who haven't seen it, Alsu's daughters became her biggest cheerleaders, and I think Bibi was on Jake Tapper show on CNN, and but there was this huge, for both of you, these huge international campaigns. Did you know? Were you aware?
I did not know. I knew a little bit about it. I didn't know. I learned about the scale of that advocacy campaign only when I got released. And yes, I felt it. I felt it, and I'll tell you how. So suddenly I was in a prison, in a cell with very bad conditions, and suddenly in the middle of the night I would be moved to a cell even with worse conditions. And then I would be thinking, what might have happened there outside? I'm sure there was something that influenced this. And my lawyer would come and tell me that, I don't know, the Czech Republic foreign minister called from the UN stage to release you. Boom, this is what I felt. And that gave me so much hope. I said, like, okay, this is very irritating for them. They don't want it, but that means that the whole free world is fighting. And what CPJ was doing and what other media freedom groups were doing really, really mattered.
So they did worsen your conditions, but you then became aware why that was happening.
I became aware, and I saw the bigger picture of it, because it was, yes, I told myself that I can find a little bit more. I can endure this. It's fine. But if it brings me to my release, if it opens my door out of this prison, I'm fine with it.
And am I right in thinking that authorities tried to tell you that nobody was really interested?
For months, yes, months and months, that nobody, they wanted me to call my husband and say, like, hey, are you thinking of doing something? And because they made me feel and believe that nobody wanted me out, as I'm dual Russian and American national, and they were treating me as a Russian, and even worse. They told me from the very beginning that I should forget about the American passport because nobody wants me there, one, and the second, I was a Russian for them.
Omar, tell me, were you aware?
Well, in the first 2 weeks of me being sent to jail, it was the lockdown and the confinement because of COVID-19. So I didn't have the right to the family visit, and I have a few contacts with my parents. And I was basically sent to jail a rapist. So it was the end of my life, the end of my career. And I had a very, very morbid thoughts about that and morbid projects. So yeah, they got me. I'm done. And then they allowed extraordinarily my father to come. And the first question I asked him, do people believe them? He said, hell no. everybody knows you're innocent and everybody is with you. And that night, I remember I slept very well. And I thought to myself, this is here where the struggle begins. And we started building the campaign. They asked me what they should do. I said, everything, don't, just do everything. I want to go in a frontal battle. I don't want to do other strategies. And after that, I had a summary of everything that happened in Morocco and abroad by my parents who came, who were very precious help to me, because my parents, they knew better, they knew a lot of things because they were accompanying political prisoners since the 70s, so this is not their first rodeo. And they were very solid, very resilient, and they organized around them this solidarity campaigns. One thing was very precious to me is radical feminist groups in Morocco were radically with me, and they knew this was this case was against all women's rights and not a women's rights case. And this has to be pointed out. Also, the other thing where I knew, every time I watch TV, they constantly insult me, or insult my friends, or insult CPJ, or insult the European Union. And every time I saw in the, I see in TV, yeah, European Union insulted Morocco again, I say to myself, oh, my people struck again. So yeah, that's how I understood. It has an impact. It had an impact, and a real impact.
We're going to go for questions in just a second, but you're both out now. It's wonderful to see you here. It's just makes me so happy, and that was a great week. We have a wall at our CPJ offices in New York, which have all of the people who were in prison. And we get to do a very small thing when people get released, which is to put a sticker on saying released. And to be able to do so many in the same week was just joyous. I wish every week were like that. But it doesn't quite end, right? I mean, you continue to receive smears. I don't even know if someone with a criminal record can even register as a journalist in Morocco. Tell us what life is like now.
Yeah, with a criminal, in Morocco there's a new law on the press, and you can't just not be a blogger or a journalist without getting a press card. Officially from a journalist's institution, but unofficially it's the state. So, and when you have a criminal record, you don't get that. So if you write in Morocco without a press card, you can be prosecuted as usurpating a profession. Even a citizen that writes his own opinion on his Facebook page, he can be prosecuted for being a fake journalist, and it's like two years in jail. So we have a liberticide atmosphere in Morocco right now. And for me, objectively, even without a criminal record, Morocco is no place for journalism right now, because there's a lot of oppression, a lot of what we call red lines, and a lot of unofficial, invisible oppressions. They can make your life hard, following you, physically following you, tapping your phone, making your friends making your friends like defiant from you, things like that, threatening your family, basically a lot of things, or making you poorer because they can prevent people from hiring you. Yeah,
so can I ask you this question then? How safe do you feel going back?
There's always a risk, but as I always say, there's a risk for 37 million people in Morocco. Every time you wake up, every Moroccan has a risk to get in trouble. So I'm just facing the risk. I'm gonna avoid meeting girls in Morocco.
Okay.
If it's a political accusation, I'll take it. No problem. I'll face it. But just I became paranoid a little bit.
I can well imagine. And Alsu, you came out. You've been very vocal supporter of press freedom. A number of your RFE colleagues are still in prison. What has life been like for you since you were released?
When I got released, I took a couple of months of time for myself to improve my medical condition that got worse in prison. And it was right before Christmas and New Year's that I just suddenly remembered one letter I got a year ago when I was in prison. A lady from one European cities wrote in Russian saying, there is a party next door and my friends are celebrating. I'm invited to this party, but I found paper and pen, and I left to the next room, to the neighboring room, where it's quiet, to write to you, Alsu. And she wrote a letter about herself, who she was, and why she was writing. She wasn't an activist. She just left Russia because of her personal reasons. And there was nothing in the letter, there was nothing political, there was nothing about the war, there was nothing. It was such a beautiful letter that stayed with me forever. And somehow I forgot about it, and I remembered it right before the holidays. And this is what I did for the first time. I collected the addresses of prisons in Russia. There are more than 20 journalists right now, maybe more now. I focus on journalists. There are lots of political prisons, of course. We can't do everything, but we can do small things. I love the art of small steps. So I bought 20 postcards. I wrote 20 letters. And I sent them. And many of them reached out through their lawyers. They found me just to say, we got it. And it was absolutely, it was a happy moment. Like, making that impact, because I know what they felt when they got those letters. So then naturally, I just started advocating for my imprisoned colleagues. There is Nika Novak in Russia. She was a freelance journalist for Siberia Reali project of RFE. And she's in prison. She was sentenced to 4 years. I'm very worried about her, as she will be sent to penal colonies soon, and the conditions are there horrific. I really want her to survive. I want to support her. There is Vlad Yesipenko in Crimea. There is no communication with him. He's been there for more than 3 years. There is Ihar Losik in Belarus. There is no communication with him for more than 4 years. There is Ferit Mirhalizadeh in Azerbaijan, and there are more journalists imprisoned in Azerbaijan. And there are many more around the world. And it's great to share this big picture, and we really hope that they will be released sooner or later, rather sooner. And this is what I'm doing. I miss the newsroom. I miss working with journalists, but I'm so happy that the projects we managed, we found, like my personal, professional initiatives are continuing. One of the projects I managed before I got arrested was an educational Tatar language project, something beyond journalism, but very closely connected to journalism. I got so many letters from people who started learning Tatar because of me and my case. And it was so important for me. It was a big support.
And it's worth saying that in addition to the RFE colleagues who are currently in jail, we also think that there's at least 15 Voice of America colleagues who are also funded by, with US public money, who may be at immediate risk of imprisonment if they are sent back to their countries from America. So these risks are really real, and I really appreciate what you say about small acts of kindness, because I think we're often talking up here about what governments can do and what they should do and how we change laws. But ultimately, it's sometimes the little things that give individuals the hope to keep going on and how you can keep supporting their families. We've got a little bit of time. I don't know if we have a microphone, but if you have a question, maybe we don't have a microphone, then just shout it. Oh, no, we do have a microphone. It's here. It's coming to this at the front here. Sorry, and also, can we just look, how gorgeous is this location? Aren't we, I just feel so lucky, and I kind of wish I could sing opera as well, but this is just so beautiful. Anyway, please, sorry, that's an aside.
Hi, I'm Katerina Sergatskova, 24-2 Foundation. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. It literally very painful to hear what you say. And regarding this, today was a panel around Victoria Roshina, a Ukrainian journalist who was captured in the occupied territories while covering occupation, and she was sentenced in Russian prison. She spent more than a year in there, and she died in prison. And now 30 Ukrainian journalists are in Russian prisons or in prisons on the occupied territories. And I feel really bad that we, I think we as international and Ukrainian community of journalists, we did not do enough to save her. So my question would be, what would be the best strategy to to do that with those who are still in prison. With your experience, Jodie, with your experiences, I've heard about the big campaign for Alsu and Omar, of course. But sometimes things just don't work as it should be. And I wonder why, and maybe you have some answer for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take 2 more questions and then we can take them all together. I think there's somebody on this side. Over, oh yeah, I was pointing at him, but it's fine. You go in the yellow.
Already now?
Yes, fine.
Okay. Yeah, also from me, thanks a lot for sharing your story with us. I have a question for Omar regarding another people that also suffer a lot from the Moroccan repression and that experience similar things as you have, and that's the people of Western Sahara, which has been occupied by Morocco since 1975, and in complete disrespect of the fundamental right to self-determination of the Sahrawi people. Who face arbitrary detention, torture, disappearance, and basically deprivation of all their social and economic rights. And although Morocco can only uphold its occupation because of the support of the West, basically the US, France, and Spain, but also international companies that help Morocco with the illegal exploitation of Sahrawi natural resources, media doesn't really cover this. It's basically completely left aside by the international mainstream media, at least. So my question would be, how do you personally feel towards the Sahrawi political prisoners? And what do you think could or should be done in order to raise more attention to the conflict? So maybe you have some advice for your colleagues.
I think we are being given the signal that we need to wrap up, so I'm afraid we can only take those 2 questions. Maybe let's start with the question about Victoria, and you know, I think speaking from CPJ, you know, we always feel that there is more that can be done. You know, that there's always more that can be done. And no one should ever feel that it is their responsibility that these things happen. The people that we need to be directing our anger and our ire towards are those authorities who committed these crimes and these actions, and continuing to push on them and against them. But I don't know whether, Alsu, you have a...
Losing Victoria was losing something in myself too, because when we got that news, I experienced that she died during transfer, right? That's dangerous word, étape, where the prisoner is lost for weeks, for months even, where nobody knows where the prisoner is. And this is so important to know for lawyers, for the family, for advocacy groups, where that prisoner is. So you mentioned 30 journalists, 20 Russian. It's not such a big number not to know. We should know their names, we should know where they are, we should track their movement within the prisons. When the authorities know about it, that we know it, they are still, they feel our control. Like advocacy matters, and we should, it's a terrible loss for the whole community, because an attack on any of us, an attack on all of us, and losing any journalist, it's incredible. It's horrible. I was at the Czech TV 2 weeks ago speaking about her, and we showed a documentary about her, and you guys continuing what she's doing is the best thing what you can do, and the best thing what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the same question, there were a question of how we do to make our best to get our people, our colleagues from jail. And now we have a lot of friends that are in jail in many locations in the world, in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Algeria, in Morocco. And I think it's a matter of balance of power. There is no magical, there is no miracle actually. You need to find a weakness in your adversary and work on it. Some countries, it's a kind of image. It's a problem. It's an image problem. So you can try to threaten this image. For some others, it's economic and boycott, etc., as we witness in the BDS movement. And I think most important, in order to get our friends from jail, is also to take care of their family and their close people. It is very, very important. Solidarity and emotional support, this is, and financial support as well, is very, very important. People should not feel that they are alone. And this I experienced it. It's very, very important, and people insisted on telling me, "You are not alone. We are with you." And this meant the world for me, and this helped me go on in my struggle. As for this second question, can I go?
I think we're being. So you might have to take that one outside, I'm afraid. But in that very vein of solidarity and showing people that they're alone, I understand there's a vigil in the square at 6 o'clock in support of Kazan journalists. I cannot stress enough how much it matters that people are seen as individuals and supported as individuals, and that we behave as a community, because as Alsu said, an attack on one is an attack on all, no matter where you are, no matter where you do your journalism. We're all in this craft to speak truth to power, and we must give one another our greatest support and our greatest love. And I thank you very much for spending the afternoon with us.